Good people, I hope this message finds you well. It's a beautiful day. I hope you are having an amazing day. I just wanted to stop in, have a brief conversation with you. As most of you know, I'm Mark Fuller. I'm author of the book Billion Dollar Family Trust. And I really wanted to take a second and not just talk about the book, but the purpose behind it. Because one thing that I didn't realize when I wrote the book Billion Dollar Family Trust is how many people would be triggered by the title, by the idea of $1 billion, by the idea that, growing a $1 billion family trust would never be possible for them, because people, quite frankly, when it comes to finances, people have very low self-esteem, even very accomplished people, and they rarely dig all the way into the subject matter to really understand what is being said. They just really want to deal with what they think you're trying to say. And I need you to understand that Billion Dollar Family Trust and the idea of building up a family fortune of over $1 billion has nothing to do with the idea of some get-rich-quick scheme of how you're going to make $1 billion over the next couple of years and all those things. That's not my mission, not my pew, as they say. That's not the church that I'm in, as they say. I mean, listen, this is what you need to know and understand. If you really look at the world as it is today, please understand that your family is going to need, not want, your family is going to need access to $1 billion 100 years from now. They're going to need the resources and the interests that come off of that $1 billion. That's just a fact. And if they don't have that, they are going to be, like many people right now without resources, at the mercy of a system that may lay you off, that may fire you, that may cut off your benefits, that may end Social Security, that may end your disability benefits, that may do a whole litany of things. Like, literally, having resources is a protection against all the things that can happen and that do happen in the society. I mean, that's the bad news, but the good news is money is just math. And so when I talk about growing $1 billion fortune for your family and teaching your heirs to do the same from a small amount of money, I am talking facts, people. I am not talking conjecture. The reality is that it's 2025. If in 1925 a person had set $5,000 to the side, if a person had $5,000, put it in the market, and that money just sat until 2025, that $5,000 in a trust would have grown to $100 million. Okay, $15,000 would have grown to $355 million. $45,000 would have grown to $1.1 billion. We are not talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars that had to be set aside for that to happen. What we're talking about is thousands of dollars that become hundreds of millions or billions of dollars. And that's what the book is about. But more important than the book, the question is, how do you see yourself? Because it is important that you really take the opportunity to understand that most of us, we have what we've worked for. And that's just a fact. We're all doing the best that we can with the information that we have presently. And so When I wrote Billion Dollar Family Trust, it was because I realized that there was a piece of information that we just simply didn't have. The world was teaching people who even had resources to live their life in a linear way. What do I mean by live your life in a linear way? It means get an education, go to college, create income through a job or through a business, save some money from that income that you have coming in, store that up, buy some assets, a house for yourself, maybe some investment property, try to make some good investments, retire. Once you retire, try not to spend all of the money and assets and resources that you have saved, and leave whatever you have left over to your children and encourage them to do the same. And hopefully they'll have more than you had when you started out, and their kids will have more than they had when they started out. And we all just live our lives in a linear way, with no one really asking the question, hey, maybe we should, as a family, set up a fund to not only just get ourselves to a great retirement so that we have retirement income, but what about setting aside a fund for a few generations that will guarantee that at some point we will be so economically viable and independent that the interest off of our money will actually allow our family to live free. What do I mean by allow your family to live free? It means that whatever needs, and I always use this as the definition of having real wealth. Wealth is having an inexhaustible income that meets all of your needs, most of your wants, and allows you to leave a lasting, inexhaustible income and family legacy for the next generation. What most people have is riches. Most people do not have wealth. It is not because they are incapable of it. It's because it just doesn't occur to people because of the way we are being taught. I have watched and watched and watched and read every financial book I could get my hands on from the 90s until now. And quite frankly, very little of the information in those books will leave you in a position where your family, not you individually, but your family will be wealthy forever. And there are two things about most teaching that really limit the scope of how far a family can really take a small amount of money and really grow it. The first thing is everybody thinks this thing is about them. It's about how rich they get and how aggrandized they are for having gotten rich. Hey, listen, I go out and work every day. I build businesses. I enjoy being successful. I enjoy being respected for being successful. But at the end of the day, I am not in this to just simply leave some money. I need to leave an inexhaustible legacy that really safeguards my family, right? And that is simply going to take some time. And all of what I am doing may not happen in my lifetime. I am perfectly okay with that. I can be the person that sets this thing in motion. It's not that I will not leave my immediate heirs resources. They will absolutely have resources. But what I am most concerned about is the idea that 100 years from now, we could slip back into poverty. The idea that there is a saying in finance, and that saying is 3 generations, shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves, which means that for most folks who even achieve riches or wealth, most people fall back into poverty because someone mismanages the capital, someone who just simply doesn't know, or someone who isn't disciplined, or someone who doesn't practice certain financial principles. I have tried to create something that does not allow for that to happen. And the reason that is not allowed to happen is because people can get the fruit from the plan that I've put in place. My heirs will get the fruit, but they will never be able to touch the tree. Therefore, the tree has time to mature, right? 100 years of income building and building and being reinvested and reinvested and reinvested. And when that fund begins to pay out, you've got $1 billion fund paying out an allocation of 5% a year, which is $50 million a year, okay? And that $50 million being distributed equally amongst my heirs and the institutions that I have named inside of my trust, okay? And so let's say that I have 20 living heirs at the time of distribution. That $50 million will be divided amongst those 20 people and the institutions that I've earmarked to get an annual check. And that check will come forever. Once the distribution starts, it just continues to come forever because it is the interest on the money. It is not the money itself. That is critically important. And no, I have not invested and do not intend to invest all of my resources in making that plan happen. As a matter of fact, what I plan to do is take a small part of my resources to do that. I think that is the part that people really don't understand, because we see millionaires and billionaires and people who talk about building enterprises and assets to that level as some sort of special unicorn type of people. But the reality is that what I am talking about is available to every working person who is generating an income, who has the will to change things for their family tree. And it is available to all of their children, and it is available to their grandchildren. This is what we should be teaching our kids. This is what we should be learning ourselves. We do not have a lack of income and opportunity to completely change everything in our family. Everything in our families, and to protect ourselves. And we have to take personal responsibility to protect our families long term. I have no idea what the America of 2125 is going to look like. Okay? I have no idea. I just know that whoever's alive with my name is going to need, excuse me, some resources. They're just going to need some resources. And I'll tell you that, I've talked to some people, and it's funny to me that sometimes people will say, well, if I could leave all of this money to my heirs, I don't know that I would, because I don't know whether they deserve it and whether they would squander it or whether it would make them lazy and this, that, and the third, which I have to say, I find that sentiment completely asinine. I just don't, I don't subscribe to it. I don't think that there's any principle that exists. There's any universal principle that exists called deserve. We every day are beneficiaries of things that we have done absolutely nothing to deserve. The sun shines on the just as well as the unjust. The air that we breathe. In fact, this is really funny. I want you to do something. When you go outside, or if you are outside, I want you, as you move around today, to even attempt to count the number of trees that you see. As you go up and down the highway, count the number of trees that you see. As you go through your neighborhood, count the number of trees that you see. As you go up and down the road and the streets, count the number of trees that you see. Why do I want you to count the number of trees? Because I want you to understand that trees and plants provide you oxygen. Okay, it provides me oxygen. What are you talking about, Mark? Okay, tell me something. What's more important, money or oxygen? Most intelligent people are going to tell you that the most important thing is oxygen. Because if you can't breathe, you can't do anything else. Now, universally, whoever designed this planet and whoever designed the life that we all live on this planet, planted enough trees, and there are enough trees all around this planet to provide us all with enough oxygen so that we all are able to breathe. The good people, the bad people, the rich, the poor, people of every color, every nation, every stripe. And that gives each person some opportunity at life to be able to create their dreams and do whatever it is that they need to do. Someone in the divine planning and design of this world understood that what would always need to be here was the tree, right? Giving off oxygen, taking in CO2 and giving off oxygen to keep us alive. It was not done as a matter of deserve, right? It was something that we absolutely were going to need. And your family is going to need the financial family tree that you plant. They are going to need the resources off of that tree, even though you may never meet them, even though you may never meet your great-great-great-grandchildren and what have you. You should already know, as a divine planner already knew when they made this planet, that you were going to need to breathe, that you were going to need sun, that you were going to need rain. These things were already designed, and these things had nothing to do with deserve. We have to understand that we literally have the opportunity through very little effort. And I need to be very clear, because when you start talking numbers like $1 billion, people start thinking, oh, Mark, you're talking about a crazy amount of effort. And, the other thing is, you are being tricked into the idea that anybody with a lot of resources is probably a bad person. I see it every day on television. I hear people using the phrase, eat the rich. First of all, you don't even know what the average millionaire looks like. If you want to see what the average millionaire looks like, go into your bathroom, look in the bathroom mirror. You are what the average millionaire looks like. The average millionaire is not this megalomaniac individual that people have made up in their mind. The average person becomes a millionaire actually by being a working person who saved some money and bought a house 30 years before that's now paid off and worth so many more times than what they paid. As a matter of fact, most of the millionaires in America, number one, 60% of them are first-generation millionaires. Number two, 77% of all the money in the country belongs to the baby boomers, right? And so that generation that bought houses in the 60s and the 70s, their homes are paid off. Some of them paid $50,000, $70,000, $100,000 for those homes, and those homes are worth $600,000, $750,000, $1.2 million, yada, 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 because those neighborhoods have matured and inflation and all those things. Those people are not megalomaniacs. They are working. They were people who were working class people who had a good run, and their assets and their savings grew to the point that they have more than $1 million in assets versus the liabilities that they have. That's all being a millionaire is, okay? And so, but you wouldn't get that from watching television. Television tells you anybody that's worth seven figures did something wrong and a whole bunch of nonsense and drama. And so I really want you to understand that there are a lot of things that are within your power as an intelligent, educated, working, productive person. You literally can be the person, yes, you, the person listening to this, can be the person in your family that sets your family on a path that allows you to grow capital that makes sure from generation to generation, your family has more continuous resources, and that actually what is happening in the world, your family is always benefiting from. As markets grow, as technology grows, you're benefiting from it, right? You don't have to be a great stock picker or any of those things. It's great if you want to learn that. I suggest learning it. It would be fantastic because the more you understand, the more secure internally you feel. But if you never became some type of financial genius, the one thing that you absolutely positively can do is you can literally invest in something like the S&P 500, which basically covers the 500 richest, 500 largest companies in the American stock market. And you can just let those companies continually work to make your family a fortune, right? Especially in the long term. Remember, the market in the long term, and this is with all of the crashes that we've had. This is literally including 1929 and the great stock market crash and all of that. This is including the tech bubble. This is including the housing bubble. The market over the long term has returned 10.5% a year on average. And so even if you were the most average of averages over holding a small amount of money over 100 years in a trust for your family that began to pay them, you would have hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, simply because you made that simple decision. That is within your power to do. Do not cheat yourself and your family from making simple decisions that make absolutely world-changing changes in your family, right? Because this next century is not the century of the individual. This next century is the century of the family gathering resources, of the family gathering power, of families being able to protect themselves. And you do not have to be special. You do not have to be from any particular named family. You have the power as an individual to change things in your family tree by learning the right information, making some simple investments and some simple moves, and teaching some really economically viable information to your heirs that will really give everybody a chance at a sustainable life. Most of us do not know what it is to have everybody in their family be able to wake up in the morning and do whatever they choose to do, however they choose to be productive. If you want to wake up in the morning and be a doctor, be a doctor. If you want to wake up in the morning and be a philanthropist, be a philanthropist. The most important thing is that if you actually make up your mind to be the life-changing force of your family by making some simple decisions, your family is going to be moved out of the working class and into the investor class long term. And once you get into the investor class with inexhaustible income, everyone in your family going forward will be in the investor class, where you understand that the primary purpose of money is to make more money with it. And all the good that you could ever want to do and all the productivity that you could ever want to engage in will be there for your family, okay? But it doesn't happen if you don't learn something different, if you don't do something different. If you stick to the script and the plan that was given to you, and most people by this point, if you're listening to this, if you've gotten this far in this video, it's probably because you've worked hard, you've done well in life. However, it has not produced all that you wish that it could have. And the next step is for you and your family is to get on a path and a trajectory of inexhaustible wealth and income that builds from generation to generation. If you want to delve into this more and really understand how simple it truly is, I encourage you to pick up Billion Dollar Family Trust, which you can get at www.billiondollarfamilytrust.com. I promise you, nothing in this book is over your head. Nothing in this book is beyond your capabilities. You can start extremely small because it does not take a lot of capital to put your family on track. And if we are going to have strong families 100 years from now, if we are going to have strong families 50 years from now, if we are going to have strong institutions, our institutions, because of the lack of inexhaustible income in our communities, that is why our institutions suffer. That is why they are so strained economically, because no one is thinking far enough ahead and no one is setting small amounts of capital to the side to fund large amount of capital that will be needed in the future. Please go to BillionDollarFamilyTrust.com, check the book out, and look at how it applies to you. This is not an esoteric book. This is not a pie in the sky book. This is practical planning, and you can design a life for your family, and you could share this with your children and with your grandchildren, and you will be untouchable when it comes to having enough resources to live an incredible life. So this is Mark Fuller, Manager of Wealth. Thank you for listening. Drop me a comment, like and share. And if I could be of service to you, feel free to inbox me. Take care.